Games usually serve a simple purpose, to entertain, but they have secondary purposes too, to flesh out concepts, deliver messages, or change perspectives. Even a simple dating simulator can make such great points that you cannot help but be impressed by them. Moe Era is that kind of dating sim, a game that delves into introspection a lot more than a game of its kind usually does. Dating sims are not usually the types of games you go to for some introspection, to say the very least. Moe Era manages to be a competent dating sim while also managing to criticize its own genre. It makes interesting observations on life perspectives, success, and escapism at times. Moe Era came out February 4th, 2020, and so far is the only game Comfy Company has developed. It didn't gain a lot of traction, few YouTubers played it, and those who did play it had such a small following it didn't make any impact. It barely has 4,000 reviews on Steam, which to me indicates a small number of downloads, but it does have overwhelmingly positive reviews, so that's a plus. I think it has the merits to be far more popular than it is, but unfortunately that did not happen. It is very on brand with some other visual novels, since it also fucks with the fourth wall here and there. However, I'm confident that it's not entirely the purpose of the game. I believe the purpose is closer to some form of self-help. So I have decided to make a video about the things I found fascinating about this game. Maybe after watching this, you decide to play for yourself, or you'll see that it's indeed a neat little game and move on. There are three main characters in the game. Nana, the short pink-haired one, Sima, the tall blonde, and Martha, the one with the red blazer. There's also two side characters, Taya, the teacher of the class, and the only other male character named Ermi. Those two characters aren't very important to this video, so I just don't talk about them a lot. So in total there are only 6 characters in the class, including the protagonist. It is alluded that there are other people, however they are never shown. This could be due to the limitations in the production of the game, or because of the afterlife aspect of the whole thing, but I will talk about that later. The game has routes for all the characters besides the teacher. It takes place in a high school setting, which is typical for this kind of game. The main character is not silent, probably so the player doesn't immerse themselves too much into the role, and I will mainly be talking about the ending monologues of the 3 main girls from here on out. The game gives the illusion that it takes place in a school, however it takes place in the afterlife. The 3 main girls are not normal girls, they are the 3 fates of Greek mythology. Clotho, the weaver of the threads of life, who is responsible for birth and happens to be Nana. Lachesis? However the fuck you say that. The Lauder, the one who measures the threads of life, and thus decides the lifespan of all living things, and corresponds to Sima. And last, the Tropos, the inflexible, who is the one that cuts the threads of life, which signifies death, and is Martha. A neat thing about the name of the game is that Moe Era is the name of the 3 fates, and the name of the game is Moe Era, so kudos to whoever came up with that name, it's pretty clever. However, I think spending too much time talking about the mythology and symbolism would be missing the most important point. At the start of the game you're shown a book, which represents your life. It's empty after just 4 days. The protagonist did not manage to fill it. In the end, however, the player is given another year in which they're about to work on making their life meaningful. I believe this is all an allegory for the player. The player's life is just like those 4 days, meaningless and likely unremarkable, but they are given another chance to get out there and work on finding fulfillment in life. Moe Era gives the player an extra push to better themselves by having the 3 girls give the player meaningful messages at the end of their respective routes. So I'm gonna start with Nana, since it makes sense story-wise, since she's the first one. And I'm gonna be reading their lines from their ending monologue. I'm not gonna read the main character's lines because, you know, they're kind of irrelevant to the whole point of this. So just a heads up. So you have a whole year ahead of you. But where to start? What should you do? The thing is, it doesn't matter. Bonus points for sarcasm, but I mean it, Chris. Do whatever you want. But only if it's impossible for you not to do it. Well, would you like to be a writer? It's so ungodly hard to read these without trying to do a voice for the girls. Goddamn. But if you were to pick just one thing to do every day, would it be writing? Then never write. Although it may seem that Nana's message is to only do that one thing that you cannot live without, if taken at face value, what I think Nana's conveying is to focus down on things you really want in life. To do something every day to get you closer to your goals, and to dedicate yourself to the things that matter to you. To narrow down your activities to the ones you can and the ones you cannot live without, and do those. Oh, and do not fall into the socially acceptable trap. Marking something off your list just because it's considered not cool. To me, this part's extremely important. I had to put off making this video for a while because I was worried about what people may think of me. Up until one point I said fuck it and started working on this because it was something I really wanted to do for a very long time, so I finally got around to doing it. What if I realize I only like to do nothing? Those who say that usually delude themselves. You think you enjoy something when you're deprived of it. Do nothing for like half a year and you're guaranteed to go crazy. Convincing yourself to do nothing is pretty easy. It is much easier than taking the first step towards your true passion. Would someone who did nothing notable in their lives live a meaningful life? It's not a knock on people that like to relax, but rather a call to action to do more with the time you have, since it is finite after all. Overall, I would say that Nana's perspective is extremely goal driven, but not in a healthy way. In her perspective, you should do what you want, regardless of the opinion of other people. To cut off those things that only serve as a distraction, and realize what really matters in your life. I'm going to tell you about something in between. Something extremely important to your success. The key to success is productivity. Every time you wake up, write down 2 things you need to do today. Everything else is strictly optional. Don't even start to do something else until you're done with both. Another big issue we have today is the lack of concentration. Do you know that feeling when you want to do something, but you keep getting distracted? Sit down, set a timer, and focus only on your key tasks for 45 minutes. Take a short break and do it all over again. By the end of the day, you'll notice the difference. A lot of people nowadays boast about long working hours. In reality, they waste too much time. How can you do it with the most precious asset in the world? Long work meetings, endless coffee chats, social media. Keep in mind, you also have to sleep, so treasure every second. Simba's monologues and character with her being the one who decides the lifespans of all people. Wasting time is the worst thing you could possibly waste in her perspective. The average person only lives about 77 years. Imagine that you put together all the time you have wasted. It could be years of wasted time. Factoring in that you sleep about 1/3 of all your time alive, that would leave you with only a small amount of time that you did anything of note throughout your whole life. Anyways, Simba gives suggestions on how to stay productive by not allowing yourself to be distracted and doing the 2 most important tasks of the day, you will likely save yourself a lot of time and position yourself well for the rest of the day. By setting a timer for length of time and only focusing on one task, you have given yourself the opportunity to work at your peak productivity for a small amount of time. Giving yourself breaks allows you to refresh, then get back to focusing down whatever you're doing. I personally employ the timer method and find myself being highly productive in small bursts. So as far as I'm concerned, the time management skills the Sima gives do work. Starting something is less complicated than finishing it. Even the most interesting activity gets boring when you do it every day. Routine is killer and it takes 90% of your time. Even the most creative process is no exception to this rule. How long does it take to imagine something? A few seconds, I guess? But then you need hours to put your image on paper. And years of practice to get good at it. Sounds tough, right? So tough that people break down when they realize it. At the same time, that's why mediocre products often rise to the top. Everyone can generate ideas, few are able to implement them. Being an unappreciated genius is an excuse for the lack of perseverance. Have you heard of the 10,000 rule? They say success in any field is simply a matter of practicing. Practicing for 10,000 hours to be precise. Therefore this year, please work on your goal every day. You will not see any progress overnight. Think long term. And I hate to say it, but sometimes you have to admit that you're still no good. That's how life works. If that's the case, start something new and keep going. Even Michael Jordan missed a lot of clutch shots. Yet we remember him for the ones he made. Throughout the game, Martha's obsessed with success, and it shows at the very end. Martha represents Atropos, or basically death. It makes sense that of all the characters, she is the most interested in success. Success can only really be measured at the very end. If you live 99 years, and in your 100th year, you cure cancer and become a billionaire, you would be considered a success, right? Even if the first 99 years were not so great. So success to me is doing something worthwhile that we'll remember for a long time. However, defining success is entirely subjective. Getting ideas started is extremely important. This whole video starts a little idea I had. I'm sure other people had the idea before me, but I'm the one that's actually putting the idea into action. My video could be mediocre, but at least it is finished. Anytime where you look at the end point of a goal, the goal would seem extremely out of reach, where other people have done it before, so they must have started somewhere. Perseverance or know-how was the thing that sets apart the people who have ideas and the people who have been successful. Also, sometimes you must accept that you're just not good enough to become a master at something. But that's okay because you don't have to be. A normal person can only be great at so many things. In dream sections of the game, the players teleported to the backrooms. The backrooms are always described as having this musty yellow wallpaper that can be seen in the background here. And as you can see, the description matches. The backrooms are basically a place where you find yourself if you clipped out or fell out of reality. If you ever escape, and it serves as a form of purgatory, according to its lore. So in the Moe Era version of the backrooms, there's a machine, the life purpose generator. Every time you hit the button, it spits out 3 numbers. These numbers and the machine likely mean nothing. The machine just spits out random numbers. This could be some convoluted way of the game to tell you that the machine cannot tell you your purpose. Overanalyzing the 3-digit sequences the machine gives would just be a waste of time designed to mislead the player and place false importance on the machine. If you attempt to derive any meaning from the sequences, maybe you have just fallen into the hole too much escapism and missed the whole point of the game. Isn't it a bit coincidental that this purpose machine happens to be in the backrooms? A place where you have literally fallen out of reality. That's how I interpret the life purpose machine. So how is this game some form of self-help? Nana talks about setting goals and finding some sort of purpose in life, which would be the starting point. Sima talks about time management, which is the key to achieving any goal. Martha's success monologue provides realism on how hard and how long it can take to be good at anything, but that should not dissuade anyone from trying. The life machine warns against engaging too much escapism through some clever symbolism. Because of these factors, I think maybe the game is some form of some help. Even if that wasn't the purpose initially, that's what it ends up being anyways, in my opinion at least. Moe Era, being a visual novel, actively encourages the player to not engage in too much escapism and hone in things that really matter. Most games want the player to become extremely immersed and to keep on playing the game over and over, but Moe Era instead gives suggestions to the player on how to lead a better life, and the game itself is rather short. Let's be honest, most people don't play visual novels or dating simulators because they are very content with their life. People play dating simulators because they are vicariously looking for the feeling of love or feeling wanted. Moe Era does give the player the traditional endings of a game of its kind would have, and it does give him a little bit of that feeling, but it also encourages retrospection, and in a way, it is anti-escapism. I would never say that I came out a changed man after playing a game, that's kind of ridiculous, but I will likely take some ideas exploring Moe Era with me for the foreseeable future. So, video over. Also, I'd love any feedback or suggestions. I did realize that in the previous Moe Era video, I sounded like I was being held at gunpoint, so apologies for that. I hope the narration for this one was a lot better. I really tried to make it better, so I hope it did come out as being better.